and welcome to the press conference for the League of Women Voters of Illinois and Chicago. My name is Hillary Dank. I'm a member of the State League and also of the League of DuPage in DuPage County, Downers Grove, Woodridge, and Lisle. And I am very pleased to see so many people here today to help us distribute this book, Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve. I was very honored to contribute a chapter to this book about the progressive income tax, and others here today will tell you more about the various chapters and the important policy information that will be provided to our aldermen and our mayor. And we ask all the citizens of Chicago to read this book as well. It's got great policy information. It's very readable and understandable for everybody, and it will give you some great ideas to discuss with your aldermen. Today we are asking each alderman to host a forum in their ward to discuss these ideas. We're asking for a forensic audit of the finances of the city of Chicago, and we are hoping all this is done before the fiscal 2017 budget is passed. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the president of the League of Women Voters of Illinois, Mary Kubicek.
Good morning. Thank you for attending today's press conference. I am Mary Kubicek, president of the League of Women Voters of Illinois. We have over 2,500 active members working across the state, registering and educating voters, holding candidate forums and mock elections. As a nonpartisan political organization, we do not endorse candidates or political parties. However, we do take positions on legislation and advocate on issues after studying consensus by our members. Today, we engage the aldermen and mayor of this great city by providing them with a copy of Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve. Inside each book is a letter from the League of Women Voters requesting 2 actions: a forum in each ward to discuss the book's funding ideas before the 2017 fiscal year budget is passed, and transparency in the budget process so all Chicagoans know how their tax dollars are being spent. Budgets are moral documents, and too often constituents are left out of the conversation. Together, let's make democracy work for Chicagoans through engagement, transparency, and positive action. Let's seriously discuss ending corruption and police brutality. Find better ways to use TIF funds that are languishing in city accounts. Let's fund our city in progressive ways with a transaction tax, a progressive income tax, and exploration of the creation of a city bank. We look forward to the conversation and actions that lead to a healthy, safe, and prosperous Chicago, not just in the Loop, but along the lakefront, but in every neighborhood as well. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Tom Tresser. I'm the organizer and editor of the book, Chicago's Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve. I'm here to talk about one of the sections of the book. The book is divided into 3. 1, money that's stolen from us, money that we should not have spent nor continue to spend. That includes the cost of corruption, the cost of toxic bank deals, and the cost of police violence, which is actually the next public event that's happening in this very space. The second section is hidden money, money that's being collected but we just can't find it. The third section is money that we're not collecting but we should. And in that we have the progressive income tax, which is written by our own Hillary Dank from the League of Women Voters of Illinois. We have the financial transaction tax to be placed on LaSalle Street, and a public bank, which is written by Amara Enya, who is with us here today. Okay, as I say, I'm here to talk about TIFs, tax increment financing districts. Now, I've been researching and talking to communities all over Chicago for the past 3 years. I've done 47 public meetings in front of 4,700 people to explain TIFs via the TIF Illumination Project. Here's what we found. Flash. TIFs constitute a $1 billion slush fund controlled by the mayor and his close allies. Despite protestations that this mayor is doing things differently, we have proven conclusively that TIFs are a slush fund that doles out money by the billions, but according to the mayor's whim. In 2015, TIFs collected $354.4 million and spent $337 million. At the end of 2015, there was $1.36 billion, billion with a B, sitting in the city's 147 active TIFs. Now, just as a reminder, when $1 of property tax goes missing, units of government suffer. And the one that suffers the most are our public schools, which are entitled to 50 cents of every one of those dollars. So when a TIF takes $1 in taxes, there are losers. Now, since the TIFs came to Chicago in 1986, they've taken over $7 billion off the table. On the order of 70% of that, or almost $5 billion, have been doled out to developers under secret and suspect circumstances. Now, we're calling for a freeze on all the TIF programs, a full and independent audit of the TIF program, and we want the existing $1.36 billion to be released immediately to the units of government that depend on property taxes for their operation. If this were done, it would result in a one-time cash infusion to our public schools of $700 million. We did not have to lay off those 500 teachers and 500 professional educators. That did not have to be done. So in conclusion, we would like the mayor to receive these books, the aldermen to read them, and to call on public meetings to discuss these ideas. The League of Women Voters stands for a civic conversation. Why can't we talk about these ideas? They're all good ones. After all, it's our money and our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. As we wait for one of our other guests to arrive and speakers to arrive, I will talk about the progressive income tax. Again, my name is Hillary Denk. I'm with the League of Women Voters of Illinois. D-E-N-K. Thank you.
Your first name?
Hillary, H-I-L-A-R-Y. The focus of this publication is hopeful, emphasizing abundance available to make Chicago and Illinois a better place for all citizens to live, raise a family, start and grow a business, and get a great education. For much too long, all we have heard about is scarcity. And the only way out is cutting more taxes so growth can finally occur. But the entire message of Chicago is not broke disproves this false premise. And I am so glad Tom Tresser invited the League of Women Voters to include an essay about the progressive income tax. We know in this room that trickle-down economics is a fallacy. We know that tax cuts for the 1% do not lead to more jobs and more tax revenue. The path to a healthy financial state and city is exactly the opposite. Taxing those who earn the most at higher rates and those who earn less at lower rates. A progressive income tax is not only more fair, but better for our economy. Many of our neighboring states and over 30 states in this country have this tax system, and it's our federal tax system as well. Our current flat tax is unfair, inflexible, and inadequate. The League of Women Voters has been supporting a constitutional amendment to allow for a progressive tax for decades. Polling done this year shows 77% of voters favor a progressive tax over a flat tax. The rates proposed this year with this amendment would have cut taxes for 99% of Illinois residents and raised an estimated $1.9 billion in 2017. But it did not pass. We must continue to educate about the need to amend our Constitution. Ask your candidates whether they would support placing a progressive income tax amendment on the ballot in 2018. And if not, why not? Ask your local officials, your aldermen and your mayor, and all your county officials to support this policy because it will bring more state funding to their budgets and communities as well. It's time to fund the city and state we deserve by enacting smart and fair fiscal policies. Let's keep the conversation going and until each of these policies is a reality. Chicago could have had at least $85 million more in their 2017 budget if a progressive income tax had been on the ballot and passed this November. Let's make it happen in 2018. And now I'd like to introduce Dick Simpson.
Thank you, everyone. So the message of this book is very simple. Chicago ain't truly broke. We don't have to continue raising the property tax, the water tax, the sewer tax, the garbage tax, and taxing everything that doesn't move fast in Chicago to continue to oppress particularly the homeowners and to begin to roll back what we've just gained in coming out of the recession. There are 6 proposals in the book, all of which are meritorious, all of which require work, and all of which require the support of the aldermen and the city council. The one that Tom Gradel and I speak to in the book is very simple: corruption. There is a corruption tax in Illinois and in Chicago. Put very simply, Chicago is the most corrupt metropolitan region in the United States. Illinois is the 3rd most corrupt state in the Union. Our corruption tax is well beyond $500 million a year. The police abuse that we have to pay for each year always averages more than $47 million a year, and in fact, in many years, it's now beginning to approach $100 million. Simply solving the problems of the police and their corruption would go a long way to solving our problems, but we're here at City Hall. 33 of my former colleagues who were aldermen have gone to federal prison or died before they got to federal prison after being indicted in this very area. The corruption is in terms of bribes, it's in terms of contracts. We've had testimony at the statewide commission that was looking into ethics under Pat Quinn. And what they found, what they got in testimony from areas like the prison system, was at least 5% of all the contracts are corrupt. That is, we are paying 5% more than we should for every good and service we buy, because these are inflated contracts with corruption written between the lines. They're costing the taxpayers. So we're going to offer a variety of proposals. If the city council and the alderman and the mayor were to take up any of them, we would no longer have to increase the property tax to the level that we're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And for those who have just arrived, we are talking about the book Chicago is Not Broke. We're going to be distributing that today to our alderman and the mayor. And next, I would like to introduce Amara Enya, who wrote the chapter, A Public Bank for Chicago.
Good morning, everyone. I want to first thank Hillary Denk and the League of Women Voters for helping to organize this press conference. I also want to thank Tom Tresser and my co-authors, Professor Dick Simpson, and many others who contributed to the book Chicago is Not Broke, Funding the City We Deserve.
Could you please spell your name for us?
Sure. My name is Amara Enya, A-M-A-R-A, and the last name is E-N-Y-I-A. The principles in the book, and I'm hoping that after this press conference, many of you pick it up, we will be distributing copies to all 50 of the aldermen in the city of Chicago. This is an organizing tool. So many of you have been hearing about some of the conversations around revenue, around cuts to services, around scarcity, the scarcity narrative that's really prevailed in the city. And what this book does is it puts together a number of proposals that will help us to address not only the revenue issues that we've been experiencing, but it also speaks to the issue of corruption and the cost of corruption in the city of Chicago. The chapter that I focused on is on a public bank for the city of Chicago, which is a concept that has the possibility or the ability to whole-scale transform the nature of our economy. Think about the billions of dollars that the city of Chicago spends just on interest alone to traditional financial institutions on major infrastructure projects. We pay about 40 to 50% in the cost overruns simply on interest. This is for road repairs, our water system, and other building repairs and things that the city spends. If we also talk about the ability to issue low-interest loans to small business owners, we talk about the importance of the small business community to our city's economy, and yet access to capital is still a major barrier to entrepreneurs who want to open or expand their small businesses. Well, how do we increase capital to those entrepreneurs? A public bank would allow the city to do that. And all of the additional revenue generated comes back to the city's treasury. Things like home loans for people who want to become homeowners. We're kind of emerging out of the housing crisis where people lost their homes. They couldn't get access to home loans. This is something that a public bank for the city of Chicago will be able to do. When you talk about the student loan debt that many of my peers who are in college or graduate school are crippled with student loan debt. These are the sort of things that having a public bank for the city of Chicago would be able to do. In previous years, a lot of the proposals that are incorporated in this book have seemed, or it's been called outlandish or impossible. Well, now that we are facing a crisis, now that we have a pension obligation that is not going anywhere anytime soon, now that we're staring at a recent $250 million property tax increase, as of last week, calls for another $50 million property tax increase, increases to water, the suite of tax increases that occurred last year, we really need to be bold about the kinds of economic proposals that can really transform the economy and create a growth economy as opposed to a scarcity economy, which is what we have now in the city of Chicago. So these are just the beginning, and we want, again, for this to be an organizing tool. Not just something that we're gathered here today to talk about, but we want our aldermen to read through the principles, read through the ideas, and contribute their own ideas so that we can really move the city forward. It's my hope that you'll continue to engage the authors of this book. We are engaged in tours around the city. We're hosting community gatherings with your organizations in your neighborhood to talk about some of these ideas, as well as helping the people of this city understand what's happening in the budget, how we work through the situation that we have now in the city and the state, and how we can move forward with a better economy that serves the people of the city of Chicago. With that said, again, I want to thank my co-authors, thank Tom, and thank all of you for being here this morning.
Thank you very much, Amara. I do want to point out, the first chapter of this book is written by Ralph Martiri for the Center for Tax and Budget Accountability. It is an excellent primer on understanding the City of Chicago budget. And everybody can read it and have a much better understanding, so you can ask informed questions of your aldermen. And finally, I'd like to introduce Ann Lowe, who is the president of the Chicago League of Women Voters.
Thank you. So I'm Ann, A-N-N, last name Logue, L-O-G-U-E. The League of Women Voters of Chicago has been in existence for 96 years. That's actually the League of Women Voters nationally was founded here in Chicago. And we are an organization of volunteers committed to making the city better. And we believe very much in transparency and accountability. And one of the things that's so frustrating is that for decades, our politicians will not be straightforward with us about what things cost. And so they start putting attempts to raise money that prove to be more expensive than they are. The parking meter deal, the red light camera deal, things that have not raised money. The opportunity cost of the parking meter deal is astonishing. The red light camera deal ended up with people going to prison and with most of the fines being reversed. That's extraordinarily expensive. And we believe that the people of Chicago are grown-ups. They understand this stuff costs money, and that all of these attempts to play games with us end up costing more money than they generate. I'm not sure that I agree that Chicago's not broke, but it would be a lot less broke if we went with a more straightforward system. And the TIFs in particular are an example of tax money that is held in pools that are not transparent, where there is no accountability. And we're asking all of our elected officials to please consider treating us more like adults. And we're also asking the people of Chicago and the state of Illinois to understand that if we do things efficiently, we can end up saving us far more money in the long run than by trying to play games with things like the red light cameras. That's probably the biggest, we talk a lot about the parking meters, but that's probably been the biggest disaster in an attempt to raise revenue. And so I want to thank all of the people who worked on Chicago's Not Broke, who have really done a lot to inspire new ideas for new conversation. And let's get the people of the city talking about these ideas and talking about ways that we can make this city better. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. For members of the press, I don't know if we've got a couple minutes here for questions. If anybody would like to ask a question of any of our authors.
Thus far, have any aldermen reached out to you guys about the book? Have you heard from any of them yet?
Some have received the book. Some aldermen have received advanced copies of the book. Most of them have not. So we are going to be delivering them today and over the next couple weeks. We have some that may not be available to deliver to you today, and then we hope to hear from them soon to host forums. So we ask individuals who live in these wards, contact your alderman and ask them to hold a forum about the budget and about the ideas in this book, Chicago is Not Broke. It's at wearenotbroke.org. You can purchase the book and you can look at the chapters and get a better understanding. It's very reasonably priced. Anybody can afford this book. So hopefully the citizens will also ask the aldermen to take up these discussions in their wards. Yes? So the question is, who from within the state of Illinois, what leaders are leading on the issue of the progressive income tax? Well, we thank Lou Lang, who actually introduced the rate structure bill that came with the, and all the sponsors, of course. There are many sponsors. Don Herman has been a long time proponent of the progressive income tax. There have been a number of legislators throughout the state that have supported the progressive income tax. It's just, it takes a lot of legislators, including Republicans, to cross over to get it on the ballot. And so but we are very hopeful that we continue to talk about that issue. It will get on the ballot and it will pass.
You guys talked about meeting with aldermen. Have you guys had a chance to meet with the mayor or some of the type of
We have, the question was about meeting with the mayor. We hope to meet with the mayor soon. We have not had an opportunity to speak with him about the book. We will be delivering it to him today, and we will ask for that opportunity. And those of you who are here to help distribute the books, at the end of this press conference, we will meet over near the no longer usable bank of elevators here to our right and your left, and we will hopefully have a number of you available to deliver the books today. Yes, question? Any other questions? Yes.
Now, the progressive income tax, is that still based, it's not based on the 5%. Have they reworked it? And I've not read
we currently have a flat tax. The question is about the rates, and the current rates are below 5%. The 5% individual income tax sunsetted and it has reduced, and the same with the corporate tax. So we are still at, I think it's like 3.2, 3.7?
3.75.
3.75 is the current individual flat income tax rate, yes.
Right.
In Chicago, enact an income tax without state approval.
So can the city of Chicago? No, the city of Chicago cannot pass an income tax. We do not have that statutory ability in Illinois for individual municipalities or counties to have their own income tax. Indiana has that ability, Illinois does not.
Can the city of Chicago enact a transaction?
Right now it's prohibited by legislation. We used to have the ability to enact a transaction tax. We used to have the ability to enact a transaction tax on the dealings on the exchanges here in Chicago. That's been taken away from us by federal legislation and state. We could get it back, but it's a long process, but it is a hugely profitable area. We could solve the entire budget problem if we had the transaction tax, as usually called.
There's one more question.
One more question, yes?
Can you make a connection to what you guys are writing in the book to the water tax that we're going to discuss today?
Well, the water tax is just one and probably one of the more recent in a long line of new taxes that are being implemented or being proposed by the city of Chicago, again, to address the revenue issues with the city. Primarily the issue of the pension obligation that the city has to adhere to, as well as quite frankly, mismanagement that has occurred for many, many years in the city of Chicago. So the water tax, you can go back to 2015 when there was the proposed garbage fee, which is a $10 a month tax. A lot of these taxes that disproportionately affect particularly those who can least afford to pay, our seniors, those who are on a fixed income. So again, what we're talking about in this book is a suite of revenue proposals, not just ideas, but we're talking about fundamentally transforming the economy in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. And it makes it so that we don't have to continue to implement what are essentially regressive taxes like the water tax, or like the fees and fines that come from the red light cameras, speed cameras, and other fines, fees, and forfeitures that we've implemented because of that.